Oh my god, so do you think I'm autistic? Oh my god.
Ew.
I feel like he will know how to cure my dermatillomania.
Is that the thing where you pick your hair? He entered the waiting room.
That's
I
trichotillomania.
need that because I was literally plucking my hair out with tweezers last night for 2 hours straight.
Okay, that happens to me.
I, Talon, request Josh Ovale for collaboration with the Internet is Dead podcast. Please, Josh. I don't know who you are, but I'm being forced to do this. Be on this podcast. I think you'll have a good time. I had a good time on this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
I don't
Oh,
miss
thanks
you,
so
but
much.
these podcast hosts miss you.
Thinking about we were like, ooh, maybe he can cure our dermatillomania and like our what's yours,
I
Samira?
don't know. The one where you
Trichotillomania?
pluck your hair out with like your hands or
That's what we were
tweezers.
talking about.
Isn't like that bad.
Do you like picking off your skin?
Yeah.
Yeah, she picks her skin really bad.
Yeah, like
All over her
especially like
face.
pimples. Yeah.
I do that too. I pick
Yeah.
off skin off my hands and my body,
Mm.
but more scabs and like
Yeah.
detox areas where my body is excreting stuff.
Yeah, I have that too. Mine is like if I like feel it underneath my fingers, like there's no unfeeling it and I have to get it off type thing. I was reading the Reddit for it actually the other day because like I was researching you
Hmm.
with all your podcasts that you've been on and stuff and in 2022 you were talking about autism like a lot. And I was like, damn, maybe I could cure something of mine. So
And
Yeah,
that
it's satisfying peeling stuff off, and I'm not sure if that's pathological or not. It seems
whoa.
kind of good
whoa.
to yeah. It's,
Aw. What is that
it's
a
a feral pig. It's a mother pig.
oh my god.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the past few days I've been feeding it bread, and it's really hungry.
I like
Aw.
literally thought your background was generated. Like I thought it was like one of the Zoom backgrounds when you first joined.
I thought it was real, but then when the pig came, I thought that that was generated.
My cat's been right here too.
Aw.
Wait, are you outside or is there glass? Is your cat hanging out with the pig?
I'm
We're really
outside. My
confused.
my cat's on the table.
Oh.
I'm sitting on the floor on a tatami.
So you were allergic to cats, right, at one point?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's see, because I want a cat really bad, but I'm like deathly allergic to them. And how do I fix that?
I just by being around them for 2 years, I became gradually less allergic. I was gonna
Mm.
say autistic. The first few weeks when I had 3 cats, I was sneezing all the time. In the first year or so, I wouldn't touch them that much, and I wouldn't
Mm.
let them sleep with me. Then finally, after 2 years, I became not allergic anymore.
Is there a hen too? Is that a
Yeah, yeah,
that's
it's a
your
root.
background is crazy. This is probably the craziest like background someone has ever had on this
Yeah,
podcast.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
glad all the animals showed up today.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
really
Oh,
sweet.
they knew that something was happening.
Wait,
Hmm.
so like, can you help me cure my dermatillomania? Like, what do I do?
I would just start a journal for it and then try to gradually decrease the amount that you do it over a long period of time. Like
Mm,
if you at first you can just notice how often you do it. And if you do it like 10 times a week, you can try to do it just 9 times a week the next week. I feel like that's the most sustainable way to stop doing something. But
yeah.
when I'm scratching stuff off my body, I feel like I'm helping my body get rid of stuff that it already wants to get rid of. And does the stuff on your face, does it itch?
No, it doesn't itch. It's just like it like itches like inside of my soul, if that makes
Oh my
sense.
Mhm.
God.
If that makes any sense to you at all.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Maybe you want it to just be gone faster.
I think I do. That's my problem. I think I Yeah. But anyway, I feel like we've been talking about it for too long. So, what's it like to be the autism guy?
I like it. People have been calling me autistic since probably my early 20s.
Yeah.
And that's when I looked into it, and I did have all the symptoms. And researching it has been great. I had already been interested in health topics for my other health problems, and also interested in theories that aren't accepted by mainstream culture, and
Mm,
autism links to all these things. I published my essay on autism in 2022. It became the most popular piece I'd ever published, and I was surprised by that, and that was really encouraging because I
mm,
thought people would not like me supporting the theory that autism is caused by environmental toxins instead of being genetic, like mainstream culture believes. But
mm.
people were open to that, and that was encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, I think the like perception that you have of like I like that is definitely one of the things that you're known for in the sense of like we were asking friends like about you before we like set up this interview because they're like fans of your writing. And one of the friends was like, you got to look into his autism stuff. And that was like I feel like the pivotal like I don't know, I guess perspective about you, which I think is interesting. And I'm curious like if you think like of what people think of you just from like seeing what you write online and just like everything about like your career and like talking about autism, talking about like spiritual evolution and stuff like that. Like, do you think that you're someone who's perceived as ironic a lot of the time? Because I feel like I find people who talk about takes in that similar way, like often I like assume that they're doing it to be funny on the internet at first.
Uh-huh, yeah, yeah. A lot of people think I'm being ironic with a lot of things that I
Mm,
say, but almost all of the time I'm not. I'm being serious. I mean exactly what I'm saying.
mm,
Yeah.
But with autism, a lot of people do joke about it. Fine with that. I like that. Because I think the mainstream definition, which is that it's something you either have or don't have and that you're born with, that definition doesn't lend to joking.
mm,
But the definition that I think is more accurate, which is that it's something that comes and goes and can vary by the day, and is more an adjective like depressed or anxious,
mm,
something you can cure or improve or fall into based on the situation, or like what drugs you're on, or other factors. That's the
mm,
definition I think is more accurate and more helpful to people, and that's also the one that people use to joke around with. So I like when people use that definition of it.
mm,
Yeah, well, it's really interesting and it's kind of funny just like the way that the discourse about autism has shifted over the past couple of years. Because I just remember being younger, like being like in elementary school and watching TV shows and how they would portray people with autism. And then like now with being on social media and just like seeing like all the memes and everything that people like post about being autistic. I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that it can vary day to day, you know, the same way like of depression and anxiety and stuff, which is interesting.
mm.
But also the spectrum is so large that the word becomes kind of not useful to use unless the other person you're talking to knows the definition you're using. Because
Mhm.
there's people with severe autism, and this is like 1/3 of the people with diagnosed autism. They have severe autism, and these people can't talk, and they have to wear football helmets to protect themselves from themselves. And that kind of autism is way different than the other 2/3 of people who get diagnosed with autism.
Mhm.
And it would be helpful to just differentiate those two more often, I think. Like recently, RFK Jr. came out with a speech saying that autistic people are never going to get married or get a job or pay taxes. And a lot of people took that like as an insult. Like a lot of high functioning autistic people were like, I'm going to get married. But he was talking about the severely autistic people, like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and not as an insult, but as like a tragedy. Like these people's lives are not going to be fulfilled. And if it was genetic, that would still be kind of an insult. But he's saying that it's caused by environmental factors that can be fixed. So there doesn't need to be millions of severely autistic people.
You brought up also how it's similar to like mental disorders in a way of like something that's not this permanent definition. And I saw that you posted recently and said all mental illnesses are curable or improvable via like simple methods. And I'm curious if then is like mental illness and maybe autism too, like do you think that it's what we think it is? There's like conversation around just like the identity of something totally changing it and just like obscuring it and it causing then someone with that identity to think that that's what they are and like be this idea of what they think that is.
Like it being confined by like the label that people
Mm.
give it kind of.
I feel like that's what I found myself thinking about when I was reading what you had written about autism because I also find myself relating to a lot of the ways that you like described growing up. And I'm like, wait, but if we're just like all getting to this point of like hyper analysis or hyper self analysis, like, is that still autism? Like, are we just caught in like this old way of labeling things?
I think by the strictest definition, with the widest perspective, almost everyone is autistic to some degree these days.
Yeah.
So the two main symptoms of autism are restricted repetitive behaviors, and that's one of them. And the other one is deficits in social interaction.
Mhm.
And just with people using the internet, we all have restricted repetitive behaviors. And then due to the lack of practice, I think we all have social deficits compared to people like 100 or 1,000 years ago.
Mhm.
So in those terms, we all have autism. And then our environment is so much more toxified these days compared to the past. And that affects our behavior. And social interaction is the most complex human behavior, arguably. So if you feel even a little bit off, you're going to have some kind of deficit. Like you won't
Mhm.
be as attuned to the other person while you're talking to them as if compared to if you were been eating a pristine diet since you're born and grew up in nature without any pollution. So in that sense, I think everyone has autism,
Mhm.
but I think people do get that the label autism, it does limit people. Like some
Mhm.
people will find this label and then be really glad that they found what was wrong with them.
Yeah.
And then they'll try to, or they'll want to view all these autistic symptoms as positive and think it's good to have autism. And this is what people do in the neurodiversity movement. But then they go too far because there's symptoms of autism that are objectively bad. Like, besides the two main symptoms, there's a long list of other symptoms like gastrointestinal issues and fearfulness and fear of change and difficulties with eye contact and a lot of physical symptoms. And these things, you don't want to label yourself as autistic and think that you just have these things forever.
Mhm.
It's good to be able to realize that you can get rid of the negative parts of autism and keep the positive parts. For example, I like
Mhm.
being really specific. Like if I write something that's 5,781 words. I like saying it's exactly that many number of words.
Mm.
People associate that as an autistic symptom, and I like keeping that. So when I say I'm curing myself of autism, I'm not going to cure myself of that and like round it off.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the negative symptoms. Like I want to be able to make really good eye contact
Yeah.
and talk to people and not be stuck in repetitive, restricted behaviors and all that.
I was interested in that because I think just the labeling and as an identity is like the interesting piece of it to me. Similar in what you're saying of like how autism isn't actually genetic. There's a book I read, what is it called? Committed by Susan Scallon. Like she had really bad depression and she did inpatient and it was like super early in like there being like before like the standard for that was developed and everything. And it was really interesting because she like also found through writing this book about depression um how like genetic imbalances like that's just like something people say and it's not actually like real about mental illness. It feels very similar to like what I feel like you describe about autism of like it being something that like we can kind of like develop out of like I've seen friends who have really bad OCD and they're like, I have really bad OCD. And then the friend is like unable to like see that like it's actually possible that the thing that they're experiencing and like struggling with is like a temporary thing that can be like cured, I guess. And I think that there's like a certain connotation to saying like you can cure a mental illness or cure autism because it like makes it sound as if those things aren't real and that you're like invalidating an experience, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I get that a
Yeah.
lot.
Mm,
And the way that it is genetic is that just that certain people are going to be more susceptible to these environmental toxins than others.
mm,
But it doesn't mean that certain people are destined to be autistic. Like, depending on what environment you're in, even the most susceptible person can live their whole life and be totally not autistic based on research on Aboriginal tribes and people from the past, because autism didn't was extremely rare before like the second half of the 20th century.
mm,
So that alone disproves the genetic part.
Yeah.
Besides genetics and environment, there's another factor that I found out about recently that I haven't thought about that much in terms of mental illness, and it's
mm,
reincarnation. Because apparently people also bring along personality traits and memories and fears and dislikes and biases and basically everything from their previous life
mm,
based on research that people have done on kids who remember their past lives. Like kids, a lot of kids, when they're 2 or 3, they start just spontaneously talking about their past lives. And some of them will say that, talk about their other mother. And then researchers have looked into these cases and found the people that these kids were talking about and verified the memories. And then they've
mm,
also found that just a lot of things get carried over that isn't genetic or environmental, and it's through reincarnation.
mm,
And this seems to be missing big time from science and just culture in general, this third factor.
mm,
Yeah. Like through the process of reincarnation, those things are carried over, or
I think it's probably just the soul.
oh,
Like
okay.
if your soul was living in a different body, it's the same soul that comes into the next body.
mm.
Yeah.
Do you two believe in reincarnation?
I do.
Yeah. I've gone back and forth on it a lot. I'm like, right now, I think I'm in a place where I believe in it, but it's my like like my mom really believes in it. And so she kind of grew up like with that being the main thing. And I think like if I were to believe in anything, then that like is definitely the thing that I would believe in. But
What
yeah.
Yeah,
about you?
no. Yeah, I also believe in it. So weirdly, before I even knew who you were, I like had kind of gotten into near-death experiences, and then I saw that you
Mhm.
had written about it, which I thought was really cool and interesting, and I felt like you wrote about it in a really like it really summed everything together. Like one place instead of having to read like the Life After Life book, I felt like your article did a really good job of like explaining it and tying it in with like psychedelic experience and stuff like that too. um but yeah, no, I got into like near death experiences because I was watching this show, the OA. I don't know if you've seen it, and like I thought it was so like discovering that show to me felt very much like an energy resonance thing. It feels like reincarnation, of like thinking about reincarnation and how like true it feels, I guess. I feel like I've interacted with like also just like a lot of psychics who
Mhm.
have like kind of, I feel like, implanted the like idea of that having to exist because of exactly what you were describing, of like the genetic stuff that like kind of gets carried down, and also just like the lessons you're playing out with yourself.
Yeah, near death experiences are so amazing. When I discovered them and read about them, I was just amazed and
Yeah.
also glad by its message, by what the evidence seems to suggest, which is
Mm-hmm.
that everyone goes to the same glorious, love-filled place when we die, regardless of what we believe.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard of near-death experiences growing up from like Oprah on TV,
Mhm.
and I'd always just dismissed them as just a few ultra religious people's deluded stories.
Mm-hmm.
But when I read the whole book on it, Life After Life, I became convinced of them. And I got really into it and read 10 books on them and wrote that essay. And at the same time, I was reading about reincarnation and also growing up, my mom also would talk about reincarnation. She would say, like, so and so used to be whatever in a past life. And
Mhm.
I don't think I believed in reincarnation until I read a book on it. And the evidence just seems overwhelming. These
Mm-hmm.
kids who remember past lives. It's mostly the main researcher on this is Ian Stevenson, hardcore academic at University of Virginia, and he
Mm-hmm.
compiled so much evidence. Like he has a 2,000 plus page book on it, and he found a lot of kids with birthmarks corresponding to the previous life.
Whoa.
And he found like 15 kids with birthmarks where a bullet wound entered and where the bullet exited of the
Mm-hmm.
previous life. And there's just so much compelling evidence for it that there's I'm 99% convinced of reincarnation. And I'm
Yeah.
letting this sink in because it changes everything. It changes so much.
I feel like
Like,
Like,
NDEs feel like a similar way to that, of like the like proof that they're there and that all these people have experienced this thing feels like very, very reassuring. I feel like it just overall for people is like a really helpful thing to like research and like get into. Like I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we
yeah.
would all be a lot happier if we had this like baseline of like understanding like what we don't understand about ourselves.
I'm
yeah.
curious what that like changed for you when you started or when you did the research and then believed in reincarnation. Like, what did that change for you?
I think I'm just calmer and
Yeah.
happier. But it wasn't like a sudden change. I feel like it's
Mhm.
gonna sink in over like the rest of my life. Just
Yeah.
because so much of my mind, my subconscious is still operating. That's a rooster.
Oh
Oh
my God.
my
I'm,
God.
I'm still operating under not believing in reincarnation or near death experiences just because of not believing it for so much of my life. But I'm
I just feel like
becoming
you're living in an NDE. Like you're reporting to us from an NDE right now.
Oh my God.
and reincarnation. I'm much calmer, especially
Yeah.
with I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of how it's affecting me more.
You're good. I mean, yeah, I feel like I have I relate a lot to what you just
Keeps
said.
doing it, I'll move to a different area.
Okay,
Okay.
you're
Need a
good.
microphone helps pick them up.
Yeah.
That's why I used it.
Um, because I feel like when I was younger, I like I was really like suicidal. And so for me, the only thought process that helped me not kill myself was the thought that, okay, there's nothing after death, like nothing's after death. So therefore I need to stay alive. And I feel like I'm now undoing that chain of thought. And so I feel like I do believe in reincarnation, but it is just, yeah, it's like undoing a lot of years of operating under the thought that, oh, like there's nothing after you die. So it's like a sinking in process.
Yeah, same here. And I view my life as just one small part of a much bigger thing. So I don't worry about missing out on anything. Like I don't feel like I need to go do anything.
Mhm.
I
Mm,
can, even if I spend the rest of my life just like living alone and writing, I can do other stuff in my next life.
mm.
Yeah.
And then when people in my life are doing really weird things, like my dad is really in debt.
Is
I
he still? I
worry.
was listening
Yeah,
to
I was listening.
on Red Scare and you were talking about your dad being really in debt. He's still in debt now.
Yeah, yeah.
Has
Like
it
back
gotten
then,
worse?
yeah, it has.
Oh,
Like back then, I was more
Okay.
worried about that, but now I think he's giving my mom and I souls a really big, weird, unique lesson.
mhm.
And I don't like lament hi- lament him like not doing something more productive with his life. He's just embroiled in scams all the time now. But he's reached a point where he doesn't use his own money. He has like a group of 10 other people that he like is always trying to get money out of. And then he takes that money and gives it to the scammers.
Who are the
And
10 people?
10 people he met.
Like just random people that he knows or okay.
Uh-huh, yeah. And then they refer other people. And he
Oh,
seems really happy doing this. Like he gets up and immediately starts working on it and he's always saying like tomorrow the 20 millions are going to come in, and he says this like every day and it doesn't
So,
come in, but he's really good at deluding himself.
yeah.
what is you said that you feel like it's taught your souls like a really unique lesson. Like, what do you think the lesson is?
Patience and acceptance and not trying to change people. Like at first when he was doing all this, I would come up with all this evidence for why the thing he was doing was a scam. And
Mhm.
I wrote a report with all this evidence, and it had no effect on him. It just made us both really angry. And now I just realized that even if he does this the rest of his life, that's fine. Like in the next life, he can stop doing it. It's an experience for all of us, I now think.
Wait, that is
Yeah.
like really interesting though, of like just like like this person is like caught in this thing and like you're just watching that happen. Like that feels very interesting of like what does that mean for your dad, you know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also a really good writing opportunity. Like in the future when he's gone, I foresee writing about this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so crazy his situation. I've never seen someone so deluded and yet so positive about it. Like he never feels despair, it seems, about how big of his debt he has.
It reminds me of cases I've seen with friends of like psychosis or like this thing, but it feels like they know something also that like I don't know in this way where it feels like really meaningful and like it's like they're kind of it's like meant to happen, or they're finding some sort of answer. Like, do you think your dad has some sort of answer that other people don't?
I do. I feel like he has some special knowledge on some level to just be
Mhm.
totally okay with what he's doing. His soul definitely knows something.
Yeah.
And is, I don't know. I'm still learning about these topics a lot, like reincarnation
Mhm.
and souls. Like, I think maybe everyone has a spirit guide that's always with you. I've been hearing a lot about this from this evidential medium, Suzanne Giesman.
Mhm.
She was the former aide to the highest person in the US military. And then after she retired, she got into mediumship and she can communicate with dead people, apparently. And she always tries to provide irrefutable evidence. Like, she'll ask the dead person, give me some evidence that will prove this no matter what. And she seems able to do that. And she
Yeah.
talks about how we all have a spirit guide that's always with us. And the guide isn't going to interfere unless we try to reach out to it, and then it will help us. I
Yeah,
never,
that's
That's
like
sweet.
it's sweet.
I said that's sweet. Like that's just reassuring to think of.
Yeah,
Like in the
yeah,
same way, yeah.
it's amazing. But I never hear about spirit guides from religions. Most out of spirituality from people who don't subscribe to one religion, but are
Mhm.
more obsessed with just finding evidence.
Yeah.
Like
That
some
like
of,
resonated a lot from your article of like you say, or you don't subscribe to any said religion, but everyone who like was experiencing NDEs all kind of fell into this like general spirituality afterwards.
Mhm.
Mhm. And a lot of the near death experience researchers do subscribe to a religion, but when in their books, they always focus on the evidence.
Mhm.
They're always speaking to like a scientific audience who requires proof. And that's what I need. I feel like, to believe something, I need evidence, and these people are providing it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was also gonna say, like what you were saying about a spiritual guide, like every psychic who I've talked to, like I have a close friend who's a psychic, and me and Samira also like go to this one psychic a lot who we found like I think she's like a celebrity psychic, but they both like are very confident that there's spiritual teams like around everyone, like and there's
Mhm.
like multiple guides, and that form of what my friend explained was that we all have like a spiritual team, and if you ask for help they'll give you help, but it also has to be for your highest good. And then also that like our like kind of like free will laws are kind of fucked in this way. Humans kind of like have had like so much darkness around them in like decision making that like it would be really beneficial if like spiritual teams were able to kind of come through without the permission of whatever person. That's what my friend was telling me like a day ago, like was like something that came up with her for an ayahuasca experience. And I thought it was really interesting and like related to what you were talking about of like a more clear answer if that is an answer.
So she's saying that it would be helpful if these spirit guides just interfered and started helping us.
Yeah, like basically based on free will, like they don't do that. But because our free will has been like super obscured by like a lot of darkness just like on Earth, she was saying that she like had this like trip where she thought she was talking to God and like asking to change the laws of free will. It was really, really interesting.
Is this
I feel like
Constance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to confirm.
Of
I
course.
feel like all the suffering we're undergoing is what we wanted, though. Life is more about learning and going through difficult situations than just having a good time.
Yeah.
Because if the spirit world is the base reality, then life is like, if inside life we went on some kind of ordeal, like went on a hiking trip that was really dangerous and difficult, and brought along guides and were like, don't help us unless I tell you to help me, because I want to go through this difficult situation on my own.
Mm,
So that's how I view it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we're currently in a dark age. I feel like we're in a bronze age, the great year, or Kali Yuga, or the Yuga.
Oh, is that,
Oh,
yeah, that's the thing I was talking. Yeah.
yeah.
My like best friend from home, she like has like explained a lot of this to me about like just like the cycles and like everything resetting. Yeah, and no, that's like yeah, you probably can explain it way better than I can because I don't really know how to explain it articulately.
It's like a 24,000 to 26,000 year cycle. You can see it in the sky because the stars move in a circle really slowly throughout the cycle. And most people think it's because the earth wobbles in a 25,000 or so year cycle. But I'm more convinced by these other people who say it's because the solar system, it spirals through the universe, and each spiral takes that long.
Mm,
And the reason this has an effect on culture is because during the spiral, the solar system, it moves closer to and further away from, people don't know what, but it could be like a star. And when we move closer to the star, we get more electromagnetic energy from it, just similar to like winter and summer. Like in the winter, the earth is tilted away from the sun, so we get less energy, and the results are just really conspicuous, like the temperature and everything. Similarly, in the spiral, when the solar system gets closer to this other star, we get more energy, and everyone has more brain power and feels more lively and happier. And this results in culture being focused not on war things, but currently we're in the second to lowest age, the Bronze
mm,
Age. So maybe we're not getting as much energy from that star. So everyone's just irritated more, and it leads to the whole global culture being obsessed with war.
mm,
And this could just be a really good lesson for everyone living in this time, for the soul to live through this time. So
yeah.
the guide's not being able to help us, even though we might not even have much free will just because of how bad we feel. That might still be a good thing to me, I think.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting to me because I've also been hearing so many friends, and I've been experiencing myself too, of like almost this like spiritual like disconnection of like a lot of people I know who I feel like similar to me like resonate a lot with just like connecting with the soul and like feel like alive when doing that, or like connecting to creativity or whatever. I feel like I have recently been going through a thing where it's like I used to feel really deeply about a lot of things, and it almost feels like I remember feeling that, but like I don't like know how to access it anymore. And it's something that I've like has weirdly been like a common thing between other people I know. Like a lot of like really creative people who I see like making similar art to myself, like are all going through this. And I find that interesting of like, I feel like there is just like a hard time spiritually right now.
Yeah, yeah, because we're in the Bronze Age, and I forgot to say the lowest age is the Iron Age. And all these ages were first defined in ancient Indian texts. They call it the cycle, the Yuga cycle. And in their definition of it, the Iron Age and the Bronze Age, they're the worst ages, but they're also the shortest ages. And then there's the Silver Age and the Golden Age.
Wait, so when is the worst one?
The Iron Age. And that was from like, I think that lasted until 1698 AD or something. It started in like 498
So
BC.
we're in the Bronze Age right now. How long does it last? Or like, do you know how long we've been in it?
I think we've been in it for like 400 years. I don't remember how long it is,
Okay.
but it's a long time. Like it'll last until
Yeah.
4000 AD or something. But
Damn.
we're in an ascending Bronze Age. Your family talk about this at all?
Like, not really. My dad's not very religious. My mom more so is very religious, but I feel like when I was a kid, I was very like disconnected from religion, and it's something that I regret a lot now because I feel like I've grown up and expressed more of an interest in it. But when I was little, I like wasn't really like I learned a lot from my best friend, the one I was talking about, because she grew up like super religious. And it's actually interesting because she would reject that like a lot growing up. Like her family would do like these like ceremonies every Friday night, and she like couldn't go out because they would be doing these like ceremonies at her house and everything. And then she ended up going to college like at an American school, like very traditional, and then she was going to be a doctor, and then she like dropped out her freshman year and moved to India to like study Ayurvedic medicine, and now has just like been there doing that and just like lives this like super traditional like Indian lifestyle. And I remember like being in high school, we would sit in like my car in parking lots, and she would just like tell me about all of this stuff, and that was where I feel like I got a lot of information was from her.
She's low key
And
your Constance.
yeah, literally. Well, she also was like the first person I feel like who was like to me, not that, or I don't know, she said she doesn't think mental illness is real, but she was like saying that she thinks a lot of it can be solved.
Mm.
And I remember at the time, I feel like it's a little less taboo now to like talk about it in that way. I mean, it still is. Like, I feel like you can't say that without getting people mad. But at the time, it was like really like you could not say that, without people thinking that you were just being like awful. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Brittany was talking about how near-death experiences the effect on mood, and I feel like near-death experiences and reincarnation would have a huge effect on mental health.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
if everyone truly believed that death is just a transition to a greater reality and that we live who knows how many lives, like thousands of lives, then people would be much nicer to each other and less frantic and panicked and
Yeah.
having less fear of missing out. Like I
Yeah.
used to really not like the YOLO thing. It just felt so like rushed. Like you
Yeah.
only live once, you have to do all this stuff. And if you're just sitting home, like, but now I don't believe that anymore. And I think it's helping my mental health and patience
Mm.
and just allowing me to focus on, I don't know,
Do
other
you think
things.
that like there can be like the negative to that of being like, oh, well, I have all this time and I have all these lives, so I'm not going to do these things that I want to do.
I think probably, I haven't thought about that, but yeah, started just using that as an excuse not to do anything. I'm not sure, like, it would still be true. Like, you could really just do it in the next life if we reincarnate. And
Yeah,
having one life where you do like absolutely nothing, if you've lived 1,000 lives, like you might want to have one life where you do nothing just to see what it was like. So maybe
true,
not.
true.
Yeah. I feel like it's less intentional than that though. Like I feel like it more happens to you than you picking it yourself as your soul. Like maybe I think you pick it maybe before you like come to Earth. But
Mm-mm. Yeah, yeah, I've heard that a lot.
mm,
And I've heard about how guides, Suzanne Giesemann talks about how a lot of your, or some of your thoughts aren't your own. Like your guide will put a thought into your head
yeah.
and that will cause you to do something. She has a team of guides, like you were talking about, and she gives the team of guides one name called Sanaya. And she
Mm,
does a podcast, and people call in and and she connects with her guides like immediately, and her guides give answers to questions.
Mhm.
I've been listening to that a lot.
Wait, that sounds so cool. What's it called?
Her podcast is called Messages of Hope. She started in like 2018 and probably has like 1,000 episodes, and I've been listening to them all.
Yeah, that sounds like really helpful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting to listen to because I feel like I'm actually getting information about the mysteries of the universe directly from this team of spirit guides, and it just
Yeah.
feels so fascinating.
Yeah. I was
That's
gonna
really
say,
cool.
like, that was why I initially brought up, because I was like, oh, like the OA showed me like near-death experiences and stuff. And I found like when I found that show when I was younger, like I was like really craving, like you should watch it if you haven't watched it, because I think you would like it based on like the topics and stuff. I feel like it's a more like storytelling version of like what you're talking about though. But I remember being in this place where I was like really craving like answers, and I like didn't know how to go further in like finding answers because I had already like done psychedelics, and I feel like learned a lot of things that I just knew from like experience. Um, and then I started watching that show, and I like found it randomly, and I saw that there was like this entire community of people who are like so obsessed with it. It literally got canceled like so long ago, like I think in like maybe like 2019 or something like that. I think what was interesting to me about it was like noticing the audience and like observing the audience and seeing how like a lot of people who really resonated with it seemed like it like held this like way more important thing than I've seen like a TV show hold for someone in a long time. And to me that was like such proof of like this would make like just like thinking about these ideas and concepts seems to make people feel so much better, and like there's like a reason that people clung so hard to that show because it was like exploring all those questions.
What does OA stand for?
Stands for Original Angel. It was kind
Original
of
what?
like Original
Angel.
Angel. It
Hmm.
was like it was just like a concept that I think was based in like Britt Marling and Zal Bot-Monglage made the show, and I think they based it off of like the Kabbalah tree of life, and like it's like a super interesting like thing that just like got canceled, and like people talk about it on Reddit like every day, and to me that was like I feel like at the time I didn't have as many like spiritual resources. I then like literally like randomly met a psychic in the park in Philly and became friends. And I feel like that's where I've gotten a lot of like answers from at this point. But
Is
yeah,
it fiction?
the OA, yeah,
It sounds good.
yeah.
And besides near death experiences and reincarnation, I've also been getting into out of body experiencers,
Hmm.
Mhm.
people who have developed techniques to be able to regularly leave their bodies.
Is
Have you
all
looked
of
into like
this?
the Monroe Institute?
Uh-huh, yeah, yeah.
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 I've read all three of Robert Monroe's books.
Oh,
And
well, really?
yeah, I'd like to go to the Monroe Institute at some point to take one of their classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going out of body, I've also been reading this book by William Bowman, this other guy who goes out of body. And when he goes out of body, he's able to access his previous lives. And he says when you're out of body, your thoughts matter the most. Like whatever you think will happen. Like you can think, he thinks clarity now, and then his vision becomes way more clear.
Mhm.
And he, one time he thought something about his past lives, and then he was transported to World War II, and he was a German tank commander.
Whoa.
And then
That's
when he
crazy.
came back, he said he was really disappointed that that's what it was. He was a belligerent tank. And then he's explored a bunch of his other past lives through this method. And it doesn't seem that hard. Like people have like hundreds of different techniques to be able to do this. It seems to just take practice, a lot of practice.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is all of this like that you've been looking into, has this been recently that you've gotten like been doing more research into reincarnation and NDEs and all of it?
Hold on, my cat's crying. Give me one
Yeah,
sec.
just in the past 2 years or so.
Okay. Was there anything that like sparked it?
It's this one DMT trip.
Okay.
I smoked
Yeah.
DMT. I was doing it to research dreams for this book I was writing about healing my autism.
Mhm.
Mm.
And then after that trip, I got really strong reincarnation vibes. Like I just felt like my life and my body was just one small thing out of some greater thing. And then I was telling my friend Brad Phillips about the DMT trip, and he told me to read about reincarnation and near death experiences. And that's when I read a book. And I've been really into it ever since. I want to write a whole book on this topic at some point.
Mm. I
Yeah.
was curious with tripping, like your spiritual evolution that you wrote on Granta, and what you talked about with DMT was that you like were trying to research while tripping and like would go into it. And then while in it, it would feel pointless to capture or do any like real world like work. And I felt like that resonated with me a lot as someone who's done psychedelics and like haven't seen that put into words in the same way. And I was curious if you've gone any further in psychedelic research since writing that.
No, I haven't used more psychedelics. I'm getting much more out of the research, I feel like, than I did my psychedelic experiences.
Mm,
And now I think that psychedelics, what they do is that they loosen your body's hold on your soul.
Mhm.
So your soul gets released a little from your body, and that's what generates all these psychedelic effects. So now I'm more interested in just the soul than in the psychedelics. When I
Interesting.
used to use psychedelics a lot and read a lot of psychedelic literature, people would always want to present psychedelics as the best and most important thing, maybe in spirituality. And
Mhm.
that, I feel like it blocked them from realizing more about the soul.
mm-hmm.
So now I'm more interested in the soul than in psychedelics. Thought sometimes about giving my dad a psychedelic to break him out of his current delusion.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then eventually I thought, oh, it's better just to let him be happy with it. And
Yeah.
he's never used a psychedelic, so I don't know what kind of effect it would have. It's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did also want to ask about that, or just, yeah, ask about that dynamic because I know, well, like the character was interacting with his parents in Leave Society of like talking about all these different medicines and like wanting them to be healthier and doing all this stuff, and then getting like past that and being at the point where you're just like accepting.
I'm still helping my mom with her health. She likes getting my health advice. A lot of the health info I was giving that I put in Leave Society, I don't agree with anymore. With the health stuff, there have been several stages. Like there was a time when I thought raw veganism was the healthiest thing,
Mm.
Mhm.
only eating raw foods. And that evolved into eventually, I thought carnivore was really healthy, just only eating meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Latest evolution is now I think that fiber is actually really important.
So do you think we should
And
maybe just be eating all of it?
and omnivore. I don't talk about it as much anymore. I feel like I've lost so much credibility with the changes. Like I used to promote liver a lot,
Yeah.
and I found out liver, or now I'm convinced it's not healthy at all. Most people probably still think I promote liver. And the thing about liver is like so many of the esoteric health world people like Ray Peat and Weston A. Price and carnivore promote liver, and they say that it doesn't store toxins, it just filters them. But the
Mm.
doctor I follow now, Dr. Garrett Smith, he has just shown the scientific research that the liver does store toxins. And I'm confident now in the diet I'm following. I've been on it for a year and I've noticed health improvements. but I know no one's gonna believe me. But I
What
might
is
as
the
Yeah,
diet?
that's really funny.
It's just Dr. Garrett Smith's program. It's called the Love Your Liver program. And
Okay.
this doctor, he has also been through all these other diets: carnivore, autogenous Wonder Planet's raw primal diet, which is like a lot of raw meat and
Mhm.
dairy, and Ray Pete. He's tried Ray Pete too. He's gone through like all the stuff that I've gone through to reach where he is now. And right now, it feels like the right path for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found the right one.
Yeah.
And he talks about how if you want to change people, it's best to use the diet on yourself first and let other people see the benefits and
Yeah.
wait till they ask you about it. Then start. And I agree with that. Like it
That's
doesn't
funny.
usually doesn't work just to tell people like what you're doing and what they should do. Most of the time, if people are wrong about some diet thing, they just won't mention it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finished an essay collection called Reasons to Live that's going to come out. And then after that, I want to work on this book. Yeah. And I
Okay.
also have a
Mm.
book called Self Heal about curing my autism that I'm pretty much finished with, but I want to heal my
Mm.
liver first. Eating liver and other high vitamin A and copper foods, it wrecks your liver. Dr. Garrett Smith, his Love Your Liver program, he teaches how to heal your liver, and it's a years long process. It involves getting enough fiber to be able to poop out bile. He calls bile the liver's poop because the liver, after filtering out all the toxins, it stores the toxins and it puts some of the toxins into bile. And you're supposed to poop out a little bit of the bile each time.
So what'd you eat today?
Cool.
I had sourdough bread and ground beef.
I feel like I just am not eating what I should be eating right now. And I think
Well, the
that's
main
why a lot of my issues are my issues that I have.
mm,
Yeah.
what's your diet like now?
It's bad. It's kind of just like whatever I can get my hands on.
Mm,
I feel that, dude.
Because
That's
I
also
just
me right
don't,
now.
I don't like cooking. But I had a burrito, or yeah, like a tortilla this morning with eggs, black beans, avocado, and feta cheese.
mm, mm.
Sometimes what
Is
I
that
end
good?
up thinking is that we can all eat anything and it'll be fine. That's what I sometimes end up thinking, but
Yeah.
it's more like of a survival thing, I think.
Yeah. I just go into rabbit holes online and then it really scares me and makes me freak out about what I should be eating.
Yeah,
But
because
then
there's so
I
many different like versions of that.
but then I do like a complete 180 of that and I just will eat like probably the worst thing for me, but I also am fine with it, I think.
Now I think that a lot of the people you might think know most about diet, they're really wrong.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's what I think now. Like the people promoting raw milk and raw eggs and raw liver and orange juice, I think that's wrong now. That's not healthy.
Can you give a like quick summary cheat sheet to people listening who want to eat good? Can you tell them what to do?
I was also gonna ask what you think about the blue zones, if you have any thoughts on that.
I've heard so much conflicting information about the blue zones.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that they actually ate a lot of meat,
Hmm.
but that the person studying them was a vegetarian or leaned towards vegetarianism. And then
Yeah.
I've heard that they lived really long because of their community
Mm,
and exercise. And then I've heard that they lived really long because of beans, because
Hmm.
beans are one of the highest sources of insoluble fiber.
Hmm.
But the diet that Dr. Garrett Smith promotes now, it's just the main part of it is just meat, and then fiber from beans and grains. He
So
doesn't
people
like
should just eat meat and fiber, or
meat and fiber. Yeah, and meat from, I mean,
meat and
fiber from
fiber, guys.
food. And he's the world's leading expert on vitamin A toxicity. This is something that this is like the most controversial thing in health. It's like beyond vaccines. Vitamin A
Really?
toxicity. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like
What is
95% of people think that vitamin A is necessary, but according to Dr. Garrett Smith and other people, it's totally non-essential and it's toxic. That's a lot of things though. It's like
yeah.
most vegetables, spinach, all the leafy greens, and anything colorful like red pepper. And then it's animal fats. Like he doesn't tell you to avoid the fat that's on like a piece of chicken or beef, but he doesn't encourage people to add any fats to their food. And copper is another thing he says people should avoid, but a lot of people think is good. There's a lot of people out there, especially people really into health, deep into health, who supplement with vitamin A and try to get as much vitamin A as possible.
Yeah.
I was doing that for like 10 years and it led me to severe insomnia. And that's
Wait, but
what
eggs are vitamin A? Sorry, I'm just like looking this up while
it's
you're
not
talking.
that high. It's not that high in vitamin A, but Dr.
Okay.
Garrett Smith has other reasons why eggs aren't ideal.
Yeah, well, my
Yeah.
psychic friend told me that eggs are bad because they
Mm.
Yeah.
overwhelm your system.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
my friend Sandera, like my friend from home that I was talking about, also says that eggs are bad.
Wait,
Hmm.
we kind of like me and Samira basically, your friend Soundaria, my friend Constance, and then Tao. They could all
Yeah, they
really
could
get
meet up.
along.
You guys would get along great, I think.
Mm-mm. Interesting. Yeah, these people who don't like eggs, they would like Dr. Garrett Smith's work, probably.
You ever think we're gonna get to a point where a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, specifically with like NDEs and reincarnation and all that, if it becomes more of
And
like
vitamin A.
yeah, and vitamin A toxicity, if it becomes more of the mainstream, and if that's just like the accepted way.
I think it could happen, but since we're in such a dark age, the Bronze Age, it seems kind of unlikely for it to happen in
So
a
when
short
is the next age?
Silver Age. It starts in like 4000 AD or something.
Damn, guys, we're so screwed.
You think would be, if there was a way to get to it, what would be that way?
I think we sort of have it already. Like it's so mainstream that Oprah is promoting it, and
Mhm.
Life After Life, it's sold like 15 million copies.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's pretty mainstream, but we don't have like the president talking about it. Like
yeah.
it's not that mainstream. Seems to come in waves. Interest in NDEs, I've read, and the
Hmm.
current wave started in 1975 when Life After Life was published.
Hmm.
So it seems to be becoming more popular.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
vitamin A toxicity, I feel like it will be much harder to make that mainstream.
Mhm.
Also want to shift to talk about like your internet like experiences and also you being like this figure in alt lit. I'm curious, like before becoming known in like the writing scene online, like what was your internet experience like? I know that you were in college when like social media kind of was popping off.
Yeah, I was in college from 2001 to 2005. And I remember Facebook started then, and I had a Facebook, but I didn't use it that much.
Hmm.
And then right after college, I started a literary blog called Reader of Depressing Books. And literary blogs were really big back then. It
Hmm.
was like the main thing. There was Maud Newton. Have you heard of her?
Mm.
I don't think so.
She had like the most popular literary blog, and there was Book Slut and The Elegant Variation and all these other ones, and I started one of those. And everyone had a blog spot back then. That's what I had.
Yeah.
And people would meet through Blogspot and have a blog roll, a link, a list of links on the sidebar of their blog. And that was like the main social media thing.
Mm.
And then I got Twitter in like 2008, 3 years after my blog. And for a few years, or even like 5 years, Twitter wasn't that big of a thing. But somehow it just got more and more popular. And my
Also, for
blog,
context, like what year is that for you?
when it got more popular,
Yeah.
like 2011 or 12 maybe.
Mm.
And there was Tumblr back then. Tumblr was really popular. And then blogs went away. Blogspot blogs.
Yeah.
And then Instagram came out in like 2012, right after I graduated from college. I was friends with all the people with blogs,
Mm.
and that was good. Before Taipei came out, I was attracting drug users. I started a film company with my ex-wife called MDMA Films,
Mm.
and we put out movies where we were on drugs. So I attracted a lot of people interested in drugs, but then I reached a bottom with the drugs
Mm.
after Taipei came out, and I shifted to psychedelics. And I
Okay.
had
Did you feel
Muumuu House.
sorry?
I started my publishing company, Muumuu House, in 2008, and I had kind of a community with that.
Yeah. No, I was kind of curious what like that, like what it looked like when that kind of was born and just like entering into like slowly like becoming a part of like the alt lit scene and being like an important person in it. I'm curious like how connected you still feel to like that association.
I don't feel connected to it just because my whole worldview is totally different now than it was back then. Like
Mm.
back then, I was depressed and focused on the bleakness of reality, and now I'm focused on hopeful things and on
Mm.
Yeah.
research and reading nonfiction. Back then, I never read nonfiction, and I didn't care about history or facts. I was just focused on my own subjective viewpoints. There's not that narrative built into the term alt lit. Like alt lit is just one thing from the past, so I don't feel connected to it at all. And
Mm.
back then, I didn't like the label either. Just because I don't like any label, because people would talk about alt lit, but I would want to say like this writer's stuff and talk about their specific writing and how it's different from some other writers instead of grouping them together.
Mm.
But a lot of people like the label. The label came from media, I think.
Yeah.
And then like waves of people would want to be part of it, and they would start their own thing, and they would like the label and they would call themselves alt lit.
Mm.
But I felt apart from that. But later on, I started feeling not as much aversion towards the label. I think it's fine now. Like it's fun.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm curious too about just like all the different criticisms that you've received over the years, like because I feel like there's just been these like waves of criticism, if in general you feel like that has affected you or like the way that you engaged with the internet.
I think it's made me more immune to criticism. I'm just more aware now that no matter what you do, there's going to be people who like it and people who don't like it.
Mm.
And I like seeing what people think about me just because I know what I've written and what I've done, and it's interesting to see how people are interpreting that. And I think it can be good to keep you humble to
Mm.
read negative criticism of your work.
Yeah.
And then the positive feedback, it's gratifying, obviously, just to get positive feedback.
Starting Muumuu House, like getting a lot of criticism and just like existing in that scene, like how have you seen things change to now? Like what do you feel like feels different now about just like online writing in general and also just like publishing?
I'm not sure. Besides that, white guys are having a lot of trouble now getting published. A lot of my white guy friends just are experiencing major problems getting anything published, any book published,
Yeah.
which I think is unfortunate. But maybe that's kind of ending now. I can't think of anything different.
Do you feel like with like Muumuu House, I'm curious how you've like if you've seen that like change or evolve like since you started it.
Like your vision of it.
It's been pretty much the same. Besides, I stopped publishing books. When I started it, I published 3 books in 2 years.
Mm.
And once I started it, it had a magazine component, and I would post stuff regularly. And I never took submissions till 2022 because I don't like rejecting people. Yeah, I just don't like rejecting people, and I didn't feel any pressure to like publish a lot or to like find people. And there would always be enough people wanting or having stuff to publish that I could be regularly publishing stuff without accepting submissions. But I've accepted submissions like 3 times since then, and it's been fun just reading submissions for a few nights as a
Yeah.
recreational activity. I did publish a book in 2022. Everything is Totally Fine by Zach Smith.
Mm.
But then last year or the year before that, our distributor shut down or went out of business. It was called Small Press Distribution, and they
Mm.
covered like every small press. They had been in business for like 20 years, but they had some fundraising thing where they raised like a lot of money, and then like the next year they were out of business. I'm not interested in publishing books anymore without a distributor.
Was it mainly just like people who you knew from writing who you were publishing?
It was like all my friends, they would always have stuff to publish, and I would just ideally I would the issue of publishing something would never come up. I would just read their work naturally and ask, could I publish it?
Mm.
I I don't like having relationships where the other person's thinking like how to get published. It
Yeah.
just feels like business like. So I tried to stay away from that. And also I would read literary magazines, and some stories I would like a lot, and I would email the author asking if I could reprint it online. And
Mm.
they would all usually be into that, and that's how I published most of the stuff that I found.
That's cool for like, especially stuff that's in print, because I think it's important that that stuff also like ends up finding a home online. So it's nice that you were just like taking initiative to do that like on your own.
Yeah, I just liked collecting a lot of writing that I liked a lot and putting it in one place.
I also really liked the writing that you recently put up. I read BB's publication. It was awesome. I love BB.
Yeah, those stories were exciting.
Yeah. Also saw there was some sort of discourse. There was some sort of podcast discourse happening. Is it a weird thing to experience like something you published taking on a different life of like internet discourse after it goes up?
I like it. It seems I'm glad the podcast talked about those pieces, because pieces usually don't get that much discussion.
Yeah.
And they talked about it for a while, for like 5 to 10 minutes, which was nice. One thing I published that got a lot of attention was Adrian Brody by Mary Calloway. That got linked by a lot of places, and it turned into a book. He wrote about meeting up with a much older guy, and it was like a 11,000 word essay. The guy's wife emailed me.
As someone who like saw the emergence of like the internet and how it's changed writing, view it as like a positive thing.
I think it's been really positive.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing it's changed for me is that I have a comprehensive, time-stamped record of my last 20 years that I can reference for my writing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my friend Gian died, since he died, I've been able to write this highly detailed account of our friendship because I have all our emails and a lot of our text messages. And this would have been just impossible like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've written other pieces that reference my emails. Like I had in 2009, this Canadian gay porn site emailed me wanting me to masturbate on camera for $5,000. And I barely remember what happened with all that, but using my emails, I was able to write a 4,000 word essay directly quoting these people a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like people can utilize this more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These records that everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
But when I first started writing, a lot of people seemed to react against me using emails and G chats and stuff, just saying that it wasn't serious literature.
Mm-hmm.
That ended in like 2013.
Mm-hmm.
People started accepting it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting with like internet like being intertwined in literature because I feel like it is just something that does isolate people really easily. Like even with just like movies, we've talked about this before on the podcast of how like with an internet movie, I feel like for me as a viewer, like it's make or breaking the movie to me because it's like is my concept of what the internet is like is are they going to be corny about it like or is it going to line up with my perspective of
A
that?
lot of books do that too, where they talk about the internet in a really corny way.
Well, like those old books of like girls
I was literally thinking
like
that.
like IMing like in the book and
Yeah.
like the IM's like part of the book, which is just like funny because I feel like that was the only way that people like knew how to use it when it first was like a thing.
Did you all use AOL Instant Messenger? I
No.
I think it was like a little bit before us because we're both 24.
What are the first internet things that you two used?
Mine were Omegle and Kick
Oh my God.
and
Yeah, Kick
Instagram.
was a thing. I was on Twitter when I was crazy and I was on Twitter when I was in fourth grade. Like so
Yeah.
that was like a very early internet thing for me, especially because Twitter at the time was like so different. It was like when it was only a timeline, just no algorithm and no ads and like everything. And that to me was like a really special era.
Mhm. Same with
I never
Instagram.
I never noticed people under like 10 on Twitter.
Yeah, well, I was doing it and I was doing it well.
Mm.
You were
Yeah.
doing it so
Well, there were
well.
actually like communities of kids on there like early on. Like a lot of them were around my age. Like and I knew kids like younger than me who were on Twitter that early too. It's like very interesting seeing like what that allows for children to do instead of like the tools they have of just being in real life. Because for me it
Mhm.
was like an escape thing of like not having friends in person.
I didn't know people under like 15 were allowed on Twitter.
Yeah, they're not like
Oh, they're not.
but
I'd
First-hand
be really
experience.
I'd be really interested in seeing tweets by like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also like a 5-year-old now, like what is that 5-year-old gonna tweet? They're gonna go on Twitter and like they're gonna figure it out and be funny on there. Like
Mm.
they're gonna go viral
Yeah.
on Twitter somehow. Like, and I feel like that's like scary because we're becoming more and more like that the standard for like when I was on Twitter and not a lot of kids were, like at least in my school, like no one was on Twitter. It's like weird that we're getting to a standard of like, well, now maybe like most kids are on Twitter or like Instagram or whatever that is for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if I feel like Twitter is a unique thing because I wonder if like kids are still on, like I feel like kids aren't probably aren't on Twitter as much.
It's
Even
kind of
like
out of fashion,
today.
maybe, but also like maybe we just don't know, you know? Because like
Yeah.
I feel like adults didn't know about like what I was doing.
Yeah, but kids these days, their adults know about the internet, I feel like, or their parents,
Yeah.
just due to the age now.
Yeah. When I do get to an age where I want kids, like having that experience and actually knowing it and like being on Stan Twitter and stuff like that, it's like I feel like that totally warps how you're like thinking of how your child's gonna interact with the internet.
Yeah, I think my child would have limits on how much time he could use.
I think there's like almost in my head, I have a pressure where I'm like, my kid better be really funny on Twitter. Or I'm
Yeah.
like, because I'm like, that feels very core to my existence and like all of my friendships too. And like all of like a lot of like just deep relationships I feel like I've gotten off of the internet and like there being the shared understanding of the internet space that is like from being on Twitter at that era. Or
If your kid hates Twitter,
dude, if my kid hates Twitter, I'm gonna lose
what if your
it.
kid like is the opposite of an iPad baby?
I'm gonna give it instead of giving it outdoor time, I'm
iPad
gonna give
time.
it iPad time.
Should get it on Twitter really young, like 2 or 3.
It.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think
Be
so.
the
Like
most fascinating tweets, probably.
just to wrap up though and circle back to what we were talking about because we got kind of off track with the kid with giving the kid the iPad and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about like what people should look out for from you in terms of like writing like
I have an essay about my cat Nini coming out in Harper's Magazine in September that I'm really
okay.
excited about.
Well, I'm excited to see what you find out about the soul. I'll be tapping in and reading.
Wait, what about the thing where you have your guest promote that one guy?
Oh yeah, we're
Oh
getting
yeah,
there. Don't
we're
worry.
getting there. Yeah. Yeah. Show you. I guess now we can just do
Well, it said
it.
that in the chat. We don't even need to
Yeah.
explain
I
it
was
at this
just
point.
wondering about him. Can you tell me about him a
Yeah,
little?
we can.
It like pains
So his
us.
name's Josh Ovalle, and he's a really cool guy. He used to make YouTube videos, internet now. Like he doesn't make videos and people miss him. It was kind of like a villain on Instagram in a
Yeah.
way that a lot of people like I haven't seen someone like play with Instagram in the same way at the time period. It was like 2016 or something like that when he was like kind of doing new stuff on the internet and like challenging people's idea of like what media looks like.
Has
Yeah.
anyone ever declined to do this?
Almost. Doug from Tag About.
Yeah,
Like
oh,
this
he was
one
just like, I
musician.
feel weird about it.
He was like, I normally don't do things that I don't understand. But then he was like, but I'll do it for you guys because I trust you.
That's the only guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
everyone's
of course
pretty
it's gonna be a
willing.
Philly DIY band. Like, of course he's in a Philly DIY band, and he's like scared to ask Josh to come on the podcast.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Because I've been
Do you
afraid.
not want to do it? Is that why you're asking?
Maybe. I've just been afraid that I'm gonna subconsciously resent you two if I do this. Because I
Maybe.
don't know who this guy is, and like
I'm gonna
I
subconsciously
could be
resent.
promoting someone I don't like.
He's pretty normal. Like, I
You
think you
can
guys
say
would be
your own,
liking. You
you
can give
can
your
put
own
your own
version of it
spin on
too.
it. We had like Matthew Gazda on and he didn't follow the script. He was confused. He thought he could just request whoever he wanted
He
on
requested
here.
Mike Crumpler instead,
Yeah,
and
he was
then
just, and then we were like, no, no, that's not what you do. And then
mm,
he still didn't really do it. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. I do want to request Jordan Castro. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I would
yeah.
love to have him on.
Yeah, I think he would be great. He has a book coming out called Muscle Man, a novel.
I
It's
actually
just
have, and I haven't read it yet. I have The Novelist up on my shelf above
oh,
my desk.
that's great. It's a good
Yeah,
one to read. It's not that long too.
yeah. No, I'm excited to read that.
But I guess I can do it since I've talked about what I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you've given us the
I,
full.
Talon, request Josh Ovalle for collaboration with the Internet is Dead podcast. Please, Josh. I don't know who you are, but I'm being forced to do this. be on this podcast. I think you'll have a good time. I had a good time on this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
I don't
Oh,
miss
thanks
you,
so
but
much.
these podcast hosts miss you.
I like also how getting people and then explaining who Josh is to like internet people who don't know who Josh is. Like, I just feel like we're bridging a gap in a way that's actually really
Yeah.
spiritual.
Yeah, I think it's great. You two have gotten so many people to do this. I think it's really funny.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just don't react well to like being forced to say things. I don't sound sincere, and I sound like developing subconscious
Resentment, like you're
Yeah.
gonna resent us and
for
stuff.
being
No.
forced. But now that I've talked it through, I'm fine.
Well, now
Okay.
that like now we're kind of like on the same page about it, like at least you got that off your chest. But I was gonna
Yeah.
say, like doing that, like the feeling of doing that, like it was meant to kind of emulate what he used to do, where he used to just like do like crazy like things that would like link people together. Like he got like all these random people to like do this like old YouTuber like Brennan Taylor. He had people do this thing called the Brennan Taylor challenge where he like had everyone like say his intro, and he got all these people who like didn't even know him like saying it. So like I feel like we're aiming to admit a certain type of group psychosis that's similar to that.
I like
Yeah.
that. And he's not online at all anymore.
He's like
He
he's been in one of
sometimes-
Eugene's movies actually, which
Yeah.
is funny because I knew who Josh was before I knew who Eugene was because of the movie.
Do you think he knows about this?
Yeah.
I just feel like he has to.
I feel
and-
like there's no way. I think he hates us.
Yeah, I think he probably hates us.
Yeah.
But it's like fine. I honestly don't mind too much. Like
Yeah, I also don't mind. I think it's fine. We've had like his friends on though, and they seem to like they think we're fine.
Yeah, I really do like it. It's really funny.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
The intro with the heavy metal riff thing. It's
Yeah,
really
thanks.
Thank you.
Did you watch any of our episodes before coming on?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yeah,
one?
I watched the Gabby one.
Yeah, she was
I
great.
love that one.
Yeah.
I've watched parts of the other ones. You have a lot of. You two are so prolific. You're gonna interview like everyone.
Aw, thank
that's
you. That's
really
so
sweet.
sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think
I've
we're
listened
just
to-
annoying.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really good.
Aw, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It's so
There are
sweet.
many people out there interviewing all these people.